Martin Armstrong, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
It's always a pleasure to join you.
Well, I'm very, very interested to hear your take on what's happening in the world at the moment. I know many actually in our audience have been saying, when are you going to catch up with Martin Armstrong? We always appreciate his insight. So very, very much looking forward to this conversation. I heard you make a statement recently, Martin, that basically they needed this war. So obviously we have a huge situation right now in the Middle East, which is very quickly escalating. What is your take on this situation?
Well, look, I mean, I think it's the same thing as 9/11. I mean, they knew they were going to, attack the World Trade Center, and they let it happen, and then they get all this, power out of it. They got the Patriot Act. Suddenly, you couldn't wire any money to an individual more than $3,000. Who were they, and all this other sort of stuff. Here in Israel, I mean, I have very good contacts. And I mean, I basically was told, number one, that the guards at the border were reassigned 2 days before. I mean, anybody that's been to Israel knows that, it's about the size of New Jersey. I mean, how would it take hours for the military to even respond? It's crazy.
Well, that's a very good point. I think I tried to work it out. We're talking about maybe around 4 hours, 5 hours max to get from the top to that location.
It's really absurd, really. And this was created. They knew it was coming. There's no way you would have 1,000 people gathering on the other side of the fence and nobody knew it. I mean, there's surveillance all over the place. I mean, I've driven down the West Bank and I've been to Israel. It's basically like a fortress, and that fence, if a cat touches it, it goes off. It's absurd, really, this whole thing. And what it's really about is, I mean, even Hillary Clinton had said the way to beat Russia is by attrition. And they have no problem using everybody else as their drones, basically, Ukraine, etc. And this is to bring in Russia into the Middle East. They know they're there behind Iran. They're going to be behind Syria. And many of the other places. And then, so they want them to come in, to get involved again. The Israeli people ought to wake up, really, because they're like the Ukrainians. There's almost 10 million of them that have fled the country. And when are they ever going to go back?
Then there were three. Jenna Ellis is now the latest Trump attorney, or former Trump attorney, to flip in the Georgia election subversion case. She pleaded guilty to one count of aiding and abetting false statements.
She's also going to cooperate with prosecutors who are recommending 5 years of probation and for her to pay $5,000 in restitution. The former Trump attorney delivered a tearful statement to the judge while pleading guilty, disavowing her participation in the former president's effort to overturn the 2020 election.
I endeavored to represent my client to the best of my ability. I relied on others, including lawyers with many more years of experience than I, to provide me with true and reliable information. What I did not do, but should have done, Your Honor, was to make sure that the facts the other lawyers alleged to be true were in fact true.
All right, Thrive Nation, I've never been more terrified or excited to hear what somebody has to say than what today's guest has to say about the following clip. Now, the following clips, I have not gotten together with today's guest and said, hey, approve these clips before I show them. These are just clips of kind of breaking news. And what I'm seeing right now is I was told, me personally, I was told that we're not supposed to talk about election fraud, medical fraud, religious fraud, monetary fraud, whatever. I've been told that by multiple people, and I find myself being sued by the former head of security and strategy of Dominion for defamation for doing so. And today's guest, Roger Stone, is a guy that was told if he will simply say things that aren't true, then he can get off and not face prison time. But he refused to betray the president of the United States. So Roger Stone refused to betray the president of the United States. If you don't know, he then had all hell unleashed on him, and it was captured on CNN as it happened. So I'm going to play this clip here, and I want to get Roger Stone's reaction. Here we go, folks.
I believe in and I value election integrity. If I knew then what I know now, I would have declined to represent Donald Trump in these post-election challenges. I look back on this whole experience with deep remorse. For those failures of mine, Your Honor, I have taken responsibility already before the Colorado bar who censured me, and I now take responsibility before this court and apologize to the people of Georgia.
Roger Stone, sir, welcome onto the Thrive Time show. What say you, sir?
Well, the government has awesome powers in a county like Fulton County, Georgia, or a jurisdiction like Washington, D.C. There is no possibility of a fair trial. In fact, they don't even allow you to introduce evidence that would prove your innocence, even though technically they're supposed to prove your guilt. You're not required to prove your innocence, and not all people are equal. So a woman of her age, with a family, facing serious fines and prison time, as well as disbarment, obviously made a decision. The real question here is, in any of these people who have pled guilty, by the way, I don't know Jenna Ellis. I don't know. I know Sidney Powell, although I've never actually met her. I've exchanged emails with her. Don't know this fellow Chesborough. Never had any communications with him whatsoever. The real question here, Clay, is when we get to the trial, will President Trump's lawyers be allowed to introduce evidence on his behalf that demonstrates on what basis he believed there was election irregularity and fraud in Georgia? That's really the only question. In other words, any of these witnesses can say, theoretically, I told Trump X, but it's not what they told Trump, it's what Trump thought and what Trump believed, what in Latin they call mens rea. Now, I'm not an attorney, but those attorneys who I have consulted tell me that that will be the crucial question in both DC and in Fulton County, Georgia.
Anna, good evening, and thank you so much for taking the time to come back around on this case that I've been following, which is the complaint filed by Health Freedom Defense Fund against U.S. Freedom Flyers over some significant monies to date. And you have just recently filed a motion or a brief in support of an expedited motion to change a venue on this case that seems to be really just kind of getting inflammatory, maybe perhaps under the Attorney General's skin in the state in which it's been filed over there in Idaho. What's the latest?
Thank you for having me on, Anne. Yes, well, this is the latest because we got the case transferred from state court to federal court after it was filed, and that was based on diversity of citizenship, and that's a statute under the federal laws that allow us to move a case to the federal court. The next step for that was to evaluate whether we should file a change of venue. And our research indicated that we had very good grounds for filing a change of venue. So we have asked the court to change the venue to the Western District of North Carolina. And the reason for that is North Carolina is one of the places that the lawsuit could have been brought. The other places would have included Wyoming because HFDF is a Wyoming corporation, and or Texas because the USFF Inc. is a Texas corporation. So we had 3 states we could choose from in this motion. We felt our strongest choice was North Carolina, however, because of the significant contacts that not only the board directors and we thought that the significant contacts with North Carolina outweighed any other types of benefits that might have been in any other state. So we did the filing to ask for the transfer to North Carolina. And we had some very compelling grounds, and they are the interest of justice. And I know that you'll want to talk about those more.